The girl who lived a second life saw once again the man who had treated her like a treasure. But now he had become a boy whose legs were disabled. And at this moment, Bei Yao was just a 4-year-old child. Little Pei Chuan, sitting in his wheelchair, was struggling to pull up his urine-soaked pants. The embarrassing scene happened to be seen by his classmates, who mocked him as a dirty kid. They even said he had no legs and that they would never play with him again, saying he would wet his pants if he played with them. His pride hurt. Little Pei Chuan panicked and threw away his textbook, trying to cover the marks on the floor. He held back his tears and muttered, I didn't mean to. Sleeping soundly nearby, Bei Yao was awakened by the noise. She slowly opened her eyes, her mind spinning, though she clearly remembered dying. So where was she now? She looked around and a familiar figure entered her sight. It was Pei Chuan from childhood. 18 years later he would become that stubborn, intense genius programmer Pei Chuan. The same Pei Chuan who protected her for 2 years after she escaped from the hellish Hua family, when she was at her most desperate and helpless. She had once thought that if life could start over, she would stay far away from Hua Su and honor her parents for the rest of her life. She wanted her life to have nothing to do with Pei Chuan, unless he hadn't left that unforgettable mark before she died. And now he was just a weak child who had just lost his legs. When school ended, Bei Yao's mother came to pick her up. Bei Yao cried like a little tearful doll. Her mother thought she was scared by the hail, and Bei Yao burrowed into her arms, shaking her head hard. Maybe it was seeing her mother, or maybe it was sympathy for little Pei Chuan, but she looked back at him again before leaving, her feelings mixed. She remembered that Pei Chuan's mother was a surgeon who sometimes worked late into the night, and his father was a captain in the criminal police, also very busy. And tonight the temperature would drop. It would be the coldest night of the summer. In her previous life, Pei Chuan never waited for anyone in the whole world to come for him. Early the next morning, Bei Yao followed her mother to school. Usually she didn't want to go even when urged, but today she insisted on coming despite being sick. After saying goodbye to her mother, Bei Yao ran quickly toward the classroom, not looking sick at all. The teacher reminded her that if she felt unwell, she must tell the teacher. She remembered that in her previous life he didn't come to kindergarten on this day, and from this day on, Pei Chuan never spoke another word and even refused to return to kindergarten. She didn't know what Pei Chuan had gone through that day. To find out, she kept her eyes on him. While the children were playing the throwing handkerchief game, a boy intentionally threw the handkerchief onto Pei Chuan, and it fell to the floor. Pei Chuan kindly bent down to pick it up, while all the others waited to watch him make a fool of himself. Seeing this scene, Bei Yao felt her heart jump to her throat, and she hoped Pei Chuan wouldn't pick it up. Just when everyone wanted to see him make a fool of himself, Pei Chuan still picked up the handkerchief. Though struggling, he was like a trapped beast filled with stubbornness and defiance. Even though he did it well, it still drew a burst of laughter from the classmates. In the past, Pei Chuan was just a legless, disabled boy in Bei Yao's eyes. If he hadn't later protected her like a devil, perhaps even after being reborn, she wouldn't have paid much attention to him. Even if the world saw him as a devil, he was her benefactor. From that moment on, she decided to save Pei Chuan and melt his cold heart little by little with her warmth. She originally didn't want to have anything to do with Pei Chuan again, but when she saw him being bullied, the anger in her finally burst out. She used all her strength to hug tightly the boy who bullied Pei Chuan. The boy kicked and struggled against Bei Yao, but he couldn't shake her off. In the end, he could only cry loudly and ask the teacher for help. Seeing that he had lost his earlier arrogance, Bei Yao wanted Pei Chuan to take this chance and grab him. But Pei Chuan ignored her kindness, threw the handkerchief away and turned to leave. His attitude left Bei Yao confused. At that moment, the teacher also walked over and picked Bei Yao up from the ground. Seeing the child crying on the floor, she had no idea what had happened just now. As school was about to end, Pei Chuan still hadn't waited for his parents to come. He remembered that the girl with the bright eyes was the youngest child in the kindergarten. She lived in the same neighborhood as he did. She was delicate, often got sick and cried easily. Everyone called her Yao Yao. Soon, the parents came one after another to pick up their children, and in the end, only Bei Yao and Pei Chuan were left. Bei Yao folded a paper airplane especially for Pei Chuan and introduced herself. "Hello, my name is Bei Yao. We live very close. Let's go home together." Her kindness didn't gain Pei Chuan's favor, but he angrily pushed her away and threw away the airplane she gave him. Instead of being angry, Bei Yao happily picked up the paper airplane and handed it to him again. Pei Chuan tore the paper airplane in half. He had seen too much hypocrisy from classmates and thought Bei Yao was just like them. He assumed she would cry loudly like Chin Hu and then tell the teacher. But Bei Yao knew Pei Chuan was someone who had been hurt, like a hedgehog covered in thorns but soft on the inside. Bei Yao didn't cry. She even smiled and asked if Pei Chuan wanted to go home with her, saying that her mom hadn't come to pick her up either, so they could go home by themselves, okay? Pei Chuan didn't speak and Bei Yao thought he had agreed. Just as she reached out to push his wheelchair, Pei Chuan slapped her hand away with a serious expression. Bei Yao was frightened. She hadn't expected Pei Chuan to be so difficult to get along with. At that moment, Bei Yao's mother came to pick her up. She scooped Bei Yao into her arms, and when she was about to leave, she saw Pei Chuan and felt soft-hearted. She instinctively asked Pei Chuan if he wanted to go home with them. Pei Chuan did not reply. Seeing this, the teacher quickly came over and asked Bei Yao's mother to head home first. Helpless, she took Bei Yao away, her heart filled with mixed feelings. She truly didn't know what sins those parents had committed for their child to have such a temperament. Watching Bei Yao happily holding her mother's hand as they walked away, Pei Chuan felt extremely sad, so she really had lied to him. Her mother did come to take her home. That night, Bei Yao kept observing the home across from hers. The lights in Pei Chuan's house were on, and someone was inside, so she assumed he had already been picked up by his family. Only then did she feel at ease and prepare to rest, but suddenly her head hurt badly as if she were about to get a fever again, and her memory began to blur. To avoid repeating the past and fearing she would lose her memory again, she decided to write down everything she knew in her notebook. Enduring her discomfort, she struggled to write. In 2010, Bei Yao married Hu Su. After marriage, she learned that he had someone he truly loved, and she was merely a shield he used to resist his family and protect the woman he loved. Hu Su came from a lineage of soldiers and businessmen, wealthy and powerful. To help Bei Yao escape the cage of the Hua family, Ms. Zhao Jilan and Mr. Bei Lizai ran everywhere seeking help, and in the end Mr. Bei had an accident and became a vegetative patient. Ms. Zhao Jilan eventually went to ask a man for help. His name was Pei Chuan, a man the whole world called a devil because the programs he wrote were seen as threats to social stability. He protected Bei Yao for 2 years. On the day she died, Pei Chuan told her that she was the one he never dared to love in his entire life. In their past life, because of what happened today, Pei Chuan refused to go to kindergarten and never spoke again. As she wrote, tears of pain streamed down her face. She didn't know what Pei Chuan in this life would be like tomorrow, but she knew today's notes would be enough for her to remember him. Unexpectedly, the next day Pei Chuan went to school, but Bei Yao didn't. From then on, Bei Yao fell seriously ill and her memory froze at the time she was in 3rd grade. But she knew she had been reborn and knew she must treat Pei Chuan well in this life. Many days later, when she returned to kindergarten again, she searched the whole school for Pei Chuan, because she knew she was reborn and had to treat him well. But when she finally saw little Pei Chuan, he seemed even thinner than last time. To please him, she specially brought flowers today. She thought that as long as she gave the flowers to him, he would pay attention to her, right? But before she could give the flowers, Chin Hu snatched Pei Chuan's cookies and said, "You don't eat them anyway, so why can't I? You can't beat me." The girl who came with her said his cookies were dirty and told Chin Hu not to eat randomly. A boy beside them agreed, saying Pei Chuan wet his pants, so his cookies must be dirty too. In the end, Chin Hu tossed the cookies to the ground with disgust. Pei Chuan could no longer endure it and grabbed Chin Hu's collar. Chin Hu didn't know what he was trying to do and told Pei Chuan to let him go. Pei Chuan held on to Chin Hu tightly and finally bit down on his arm, making Chin Hu scream loudly. Hearing the crying, the teacher hurried over and the classmates said Pei Chuan was scary and even bit people. The teacher told Pei Chuan to let go quickly. Chin Hu hit Pei Chuan, but Pei Chuan acted as if he didn't hear anything and refused to let go. The teacher gently rubbed Pei Chuan's head and comforted him. "Little Chuan, don't be afraid. Teacher is here. Let go first, okay?" With the teacher's comforting, Pei Chuan regained clarity and released Chin Hu. A deep bite mark instantly appeared on Chin Hu's fair arm. He cried loudly in pain and the teacher comforted him while carrying him toward the door. When everything had finally calmed down, Bei Yao remembered she still wanted to give Pei Chuan the flower. She even imitated the teacher and comforted Pei Chuan, "Doesn't hurt, doesn't hurt." But Pei Chuan still ignored her. Seeing this, the classmates told Bei Yao not to play with Pei Chuan, saying he was like a little dog, that he wet his pants and that he was filthy. Bei Yao angrily fought back and said Pei Chuan was not a little dog and that he wasn't dirty at all. His name was Pei Chuan. Her mom said Chuan means river and rivers are very clean. Those words reached Pei Chuan's ears. He felt he wasn't dirty at all. Every time after using the restroom, he washed his hands carefully. The clothes and shoes his mother taught him to wear were also not difficult for him. His father said his name meant embracing all rivers into the sea. He didn't understand what it meant, but he knew it was a good name. And it seemed that ever since he lost his legs, everything had become a symbol of filth. No matter how good the name was, it had lost its soul because of his legs. It was dismissal time again, the happiest moment of the day for the children, when they could beg their parents for their favorite things. But today, Pei Chuan got into trouble. Chin, whose parents came to the school, even claiming they would seek justice for their son. When Bei Yao saw they were about to hit Pei Chuan, she immediately stood in front of him. Afraid things would escalate, the teacher apologized repeatedly, saying it was her fault for not watching the children well enough, and that the most important thing now was to take Chin Hu for a checkup. After repeated persuasion, Chin Hu's parents finally let Pei Chuan go. Half an hour later, Pei Chuan finally waited for his mother to arrive. Pei Chuan called out, "Mom." This was the first time in this life that Bei Yao heard Pei Chuan speak. He could speak, he just rarely talked. And she didn't know when he would be willing to talk to her. Pei Chuan's mother looked very gentle. She rubbed his head and said, "Let's go home." After they got home, his mother asked why he bit Chin Hu today. Pei Chuan said it was because Chin Hu stole his cookie. His mother fell silent. The family wasn't short of cookies and they were even chocolate. She hadn't expected her son to fight over a cookie. Perhaps it was because she usually neglected him. She suddenly felt guilty and held Pei Chuan in her arms. After a while, she asked if he wanted to eat anything. She would cook right now and dinner would be ready soon. She placed Pei Chuan on the sofa and went to the kitchen to prepare the meal. Soon his father came home as well. At that moment, his mother was watching TV with Pei Chuan. It looked warm on the surface, but there was an indescribable strangeness. Pei Chuan's father rubbed his head and Pei Chuan called out, "Dad." That single word made his father's heart tighten sharply. His mother seemed to avoid the moment and told Xiao Chuan to go to sleep quickly. Just as she was about to carry him to rest, Pei Chuan said he wanted to take a bath. His father said Xiao Chuan should go bathe first and that he hadn't eaten yet and needed to have dinner. But his mother said it wasn't hot today, that Pei Chuan hadn't sweated, wasn't dirty, and could skip the bath until another day. The two of them didn't seem to care about what he said, as if they were avoiding something. This time, Pei Chuan didn't obey and insisted on taking his bath. In the end, under his persistence, his mother filled the tub for him. As she wiped his body, her hands kept trembling. Every time she saw his damaged legs, the scene from that day resurfaced clearly. It had become a nightmare his parents could never escape. It was like a brand carved into their souls. The once happy family could never return to what it used to be. After finishing his bath, his mother placed him on the bed and told him not to hold in his urine. If he needed to pee, he must tell the teacher. Pei Chuan sensibly said okay. He asked his mother if she could tell him a story, and just as he was ready to listen, someone knocked anxiously on the door. "Dr. Jiang, are you here? We have an emergency." Without any hesitation, his mother left him behind and rushed toward the door. Pei Chuan knew he wouldn't hear a story from his mother tonight. His father once proudly told him he would grow tall like him someday, but that wish could never be fulfilled now, and he knew he would only disappoint his father. A few days later, Bei Yao heard from the teacher that Pei Chuan would no longer come to kindergarten. He would go straight to preschool in September. And just like in the previous life, he still couldn't finish kindergarten. Bei Yao didn't know what had happened to him, so she decided to visit his home with her mother. Little Bei Yao even brought a strawberry cake for him. She handed the cake to Pei Chuan, telling him it was from a classmate, Fong Minjun, who had a birthday. She asked him to try it and looked at him with anticipation. Seeing her approach him again and again, he realized she really was a girl who wasn't afraid of setbacks. Pei Chuan knew she was a year younger than him and would likely stay in kindergarten one more year, while he would start preschool next month. They might not see each other for a long, long time. This time, Pei Chuan didn't hesitate. He accepted the cake that he finally acknowledged her. Bei Yao was overjoyed and reminded him to remember to eat it. It was getting late and she had to go. Just as she was about to leave, Pei Chuan suddenly grabbed the collar of her shirt, startling her. She instantly recalled how he had grabbed Chin Hu's collar that day, and she thought he might bite her the same way. Terrified, she shouted, "Don't bite me." Pei Chuan quickly shoved something into her pocket, then shyly turned his back to her. Bei Yao froze. She knew something had been put into her pocket, but she didn't know what it was. She showed it to her mother, and her mother said it was a not cheap piece of chocolate. Hearing it wasn't cheap, Bei Yao felt uneasy at once. Her mother said that since she had accepted it, she should keep it, and that whenever she made something tasty, Bei Yao should bring some to Pei Chuan. Only then did Bei Yao relax, and she asked her mother to taste it. Her mother said she didn't like sweets. Bei Yao took a sweet bite, and the flavor truly warmed her heart. She put the rest back into her pocket. She wanted to save it at home and eat it slowly just in case. She even patted the pocket. Only then did she happily take her mother's hand and leave. In class, her classmates were discussing whether they should go to preschool. Feng Minjun said she was still too young and didn't want to go. Chen Hu said even that mute Pei Chuan could go to preschool, so he would definitely beat him up. Bei Yao fell silent. She was a year younger than Pei Chuan and had to stay in kindergarten for another year. And she would always be one grade behind him. She began to worry. If her classmates were all like Chen Hu, would Pei Chuan end up with no friends? To keep up with him, she started preparing. Today was Bei Yao's 4th birthday, and she asked her mother if she could make a birthday wish. Her mother told her to say it. Bei Yao said she wanted to go to preschool. Her mother couldn't grant that wish and told her to wait one more year. Until she turned 5, she said one couldn't think about flying before learning to walk, and that the older kids were learning to write. She told Bei Yao to stay in kindergarten and play with her friends. But Bei Yao insisted on going to preschool, saying she didn't want to play games. She also wanted to learn to write. At that moment, her father came out of the bathroom and told Bei Yao she needed to plan ahead. If she started behind, she would never catch up later. Bei Yao told them to wait a moment, then ran out quickly and brought the notes she had written over the past few days to show her mother. The notes were filled with material normally learned in 1st grade. Her parents were stunned. Her mother asked how she knew these things, and Bei Yao said she had memorized them from the kindergarten wall charts. Because she was afraid her mother would suspect something, she had always chosen the simplest things to write. Seeing how capable their daughter was, her parents were incredibly proud. But her mother was sharper than her father and immediately tested Bei Yao on the spot. Bei Yao answered everything correctly. Her parents were so delighted that they granted her wish. Tomorrow they would ask the teacher about enrolling her in preschool. Today was Pei Chuan's registration day for preschool. Before leaving, his mother reminded him repeatedly to ask the teacher for help if anything happened. Pei Chuan agreed to everything she said. In truth, he didn't want to go to preschool, but he had to because once he enrolled, his mother would finally speak to his father again. He wanted a complete family, even if his own body was no longer complete. Soon, his father took him to Chaoyang Primary School. The teacher introduced herself warmly. "Hello, little Pei Chuan. I'm Teacher Yu. I'm also a friend of your father's. I'll teach you and take good care of you." Pei Chuan responded with a soft Teacher Yu told his father to go to work, saying she would take good care of the child. As they were leaving, his father reminded Pei Chuan again. "If you need to go to the bathroom, raise your hand and tell the teacher, okay?" Teacher Yu pushed Pei Chuan into the classroom. The moment the noisy students saw him, the whole room suddenly fell silent. But soon whispers spread. "Why is he in a wheelchair? He doesn't have legs." The teacher placed him at the seat closest to the podium. Unexpectedly, Chen Hu was also in this class. His face was full of displeasure, and in his heart he had already planned how to deal with Pei Chuan. The teacher first introduced herself. "I'm Teacher Yu. You saw me yesterday during registration. A few kids aren't here yet, so let's assign seats first. Pei Chuan's legs are injured, so he needs everyone's care. Which brave and kind child would like to sit at the first desk with him?" The students raised their hands enthusiastically at first. But when they saw Pei Chuan's cold expression, they immediately pulled their hands back in fear. Then Chen Hu said, "Let me tell you, Pei Chuan used to pee his pants in kindergarten, and he bites people." Pei Chuan lowered his head in shame and allowed the others to talk. At that moment, Bei Yao appeared, standing at the door and panting. The teacher told her there were 3 seats available and she could choose any one. Without hesitation, Bei Yao went straight to Pei Chuan's side and sat down. Pei Chuan told her to go away and stay far from him. He didn't want anyone's pity. Bei Yao pretended to look pitiful. I'm too short that if I sit in the back I can't see the blackboard. Pei Chuan felt she had a point and didn't chase her away again. Although Pei Chuan was still cold toward Bei Yao, the fact that he spoke to her today was, in her eyes, already a good start. The teacher prepared to hand out the new textbooks and asked the children to help her distribute them. But Chin, who purposely acted up, that he tightly crumpled one of the Chinese textbooks and threw it in front of Pei Chuan. He thought this would make Pei Chuan lose his temper so he could catch him doing something wrong, but Pei Chuan quietly accepted the book and wrote his name on it. Bei Yao smiled and praised him, saying his handwriting looked very nice. Chin, who threw another book at Bei Yao, and she politely thanked him. Seeing his plan fail, Chin, who walked away angrily. At that moment, a girl poked Bei Yao and introduced herself. My name is Anai Hui. What's your name? Bei Yao said her name was Bei Yao. Anai Hui then asked what Pei Chuan's name was, but his cold, keep your distance expression immediately scared her into silence. Then her desk mate introduced himself to Bei Yao. My name is Gu Xinghua. I'm 5 years old. After introducing themselves, the children quickly became friends, and no matter how noisy they were, they couldn't disturb Pei Chuan, who still kept his quiet demeanor. Soon it was dismissal time. Because of his legs, Pei Chuan's father was allowed to pick him up early, while the other children needed to line up. His father asked, Yao Yao is in preschool too and she's even in your class. Should we take her home with us since it's on the way? Pei Chuan said no need. What if her mother already came to pick her up? She'd worry if she couldn't find her. His father agreed it made sense and left with him. As he left, Pei Chuan still glanced back at Bei Yao worriedly. Bei Yao waved at him and said goodbye. Fang Minjun's mother heard that Bei Yao had entered preschool. She asked Zhao Zhilon whether a child as young as Bei Yao could really keep up. Zhao Zhilon said that Yao Yao actually had some talent in studying, could already do math problems, and it was she herself who asked to go to preschool. This made Minjun's mother jealous. Her daughter Minmin was half a month older than Bei Yao. Wouldn't that mean her daughter would always be a grade behind? She had competed with Zhao Zhilon for most of her life. Both of them worked on sewing machines and she refused to lose to Zhao Zhilon in this. She thought that if someone as slow as Bei Yao could go to preschool, then her Minmin certainly could as well. Soon the teacher received Fang Minjun's transfer notice, and she began to worry. A male teacher walked into the office, and she asked Teacher Yu why she looked so troubled. Teacher Yu said that Teacher Fang's daughter had been assigned to their class and she was thinking about how to arrange the seats. Originally, the class had 2 students per desk and the number was just right, but now there was 1 extra. The male teacher thought that Pei Chuan could sit alone at a desk, but Teacher Yu strongly disagreed. She felt it wasn't good. A child with a disability was already sensitive inside, that if Bei Yao sat with Fang Minjun instead, how would Pei Chuan feel? The male teacher said they could observe for a few days. Pei Chuan was withdrawn and didn't like interacting with the other kids in class. Bei Yao was cute and well-liked, but Pei Chuan completely ignored her. I've seen it many times. Whenever she moved a little closer, Pei Chuan would push her arm away as if no one was allowed to enter his space. He wouldn't accept Bei Yao or any seatmate, so it might be better to let him sit alone. Because Fang Minjun's mother was jealous of Bei Yao, she sent Fang Minjun to the preschool class too, and even arranged for her to be in the same class as Bei Yao. Everyone knew that Fang Minjun's father was a teacher at the school, and he was very good-looking, so the kids welcomed her warmly. Originally, every student in the class had their own desk partner. With her arrival, there was now 1 extra student, which made Teacher Yu feel troubled. Since the start of school, Pei Chuan had never asked the teacher for help once. Teacher Yu knew he had a strong sense of pride and changing his seat might cause him extra hurt. So she let Fang Minjun sit at the desk closest to the podium. Fang Minjun felt wronged. She didn't understand why Pei Chuan, who had no legs, could have a seatmate, while she had to sit alone. Wasn't he always the one sitting alone before? She suddenly missed her mom very much and wanted to return to kindergarten, but she had promised her mom she wouldn't, so she made up her mind. She would study hard and score better than Bei Yao. Soon, during the next period, classmates gathered around her. I didn't expect you to come to preschool too. I thought we wouldn't see you for a long time. You're so pretty. "Can I be your friend?" But Bei Yao only circled around Pei Chuan. She handed him an apple. "Pei Chuan, do you want to eat?" Pei Chuan completely ignored her. Knowing when to back off, Bei Yao took the apple back and asked the kids behind her if they wanted some. They said yes. Bei Yao cut the apple into pieces and gave each of them a slice. Seeing her treat others so warmly, Pei Chuan grew sulky. At that moment, Chin Hu also ran over and said he wanted some too. Bei Yao gave Chin Hu a piece as well. Chin Hu happily said that he would take her to catch sparrows during the new year. Just like that, Bei Yao blended in with the other kids, and Pei Chuan grew even more upset. So she was this good to everyone, he wasn't the special one. He had thought Bei Yao treated only him the best. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became, and he finally drew a boundary line right on the desk. Bei Yao thought he disliked her, so she became unhappy too. Watching everything, Teacher Yu finally understood. Maybe Teacher Zheng was right. Pei Chuan didn't like Bei Yao. Even if they sat together, he would still push her away. After school, only Pei Chuan remained in the classroom. Teacher Yu told him to wait a bit. His dad needed some time to arrive. Pei Chuan said okay. Teacher Yu asked him whether he didn't want to share a desk with Bei Yao. She meant no harm, she was simply asking whether he preferred to sit alone, sit with Bei Yao or sit with Fang Minjun. Pei Chuan did want to sit with Bei Yao, but the words just wouldn't come out of his mouth. Little Pei Chuan had pushed Bei Yao toward someone else, thinking she would be sad. But she quickly became close with her new desk partner and didn't seem to care about him at all. Today Bei Yao deliberately brought her new toy, a bamboo helicopter, hoping it would cheer Pei Chuan up. But Pei Chuan still ignored her. Bei Yao said this can fly and rubbed the toy with all her strength. In a moment, the bamboo helicopter spun up into the air, then quickly fell back down. She picked it up and handed it to Pei Chuan, telling him not to be upset. Her warm gesture made Pei Chuan feel guilty, because Bei Yao didn't know he had already abandoned her before this. He accepted the bamboo toy. Bei Yao didn't expect that and she smiled happily. Pei Chuan held the toy tightly. He knew he had no legs. If he let it fly, he wouldn't be able to retrieve it. All he could do was keep it in his hands, so he treasured it deeply. Soon it was class time. Bei Yao said she wanted water and looked at him expectantly while holding her cup. Just as Pei Chuan was about to pour water for her, he heard the teacher say that Bei Yao should go sit with Fang Minjun. He froze mid-action and the classroom fell silent. The teacher repeated, "Bei Yao, before class starts, move to sit with Fang Minjun." Bei Yao glanced at Pei Chuan, not understanding why the teacher wanted her to leave. Pei Chuan felt guilty and didn't dare look at her. Bei Yao assumed that Pei Chuan must dislike her now. She packed her bag unwillingly, then took out her favorite panda plush. She thought, if I leave, Pei Chuan will definitely be lonely. I should leave it here to keep him company. She rubbed her cheek against the plush bear reluctantly, then handed the toy to Pei Chuan. Pei Chuan knew how much she liked it. She often tugged its ears absent-mindedly during class and always settled it carefully before coming to school. Seeing her sad and reluctant expression, he began to wonder whether she couldn't bear to leave him or just couldn't bear to leave the panda. Most likely it wasn't him. Bei Yao looked back again and again. Seeing Pei Chuan unhappy, she thought he didn't like her, and surely wouldn't like her toy either. So the two of them spent half the day feeling miserable. Soon though, Bei Yao was chatting happily with Fang Minjun. Fang Minjun told her to empty the trash inside the desk, and Bei Yao agreed without hesitation. Fang Minjun then asked her to hand in her homework, and Bei Yao eagerly ran off to do it. Watching Fang Minjun order Bei Yao around made Pei Chuan furious. But what could he do? It was her own choice and she wasn't his desk partner anymore. Time passed quickly and soon winter arrived. That day little Bei Yao, wearing her new clothes, was holding her mother's hand as they headed downstairs. Unexpectedly, they ran into Fang Minjun and her mother coming up. Fang Minjun was being held in Zhao Xiu's arms like a precious treasure. Seeing them, Bei Yao greeted them politely, but Zhao Xiu spoke mockingly. "Zhilan, from far away I almost thought Yao Yao was a little fireball." Zhao Xiu had always been jealous of Zhao Zhilan and liked to compete in everything. Zhao Zhilan didn't bother arguing and simply replied, "Your Minmin's outfit isn't cheap, right?" Zhao Xiu didn't catch the hidden meaning and immediately showed off her daughter, saying proudly, "Of course it isn't cheap. The coat alone cost more than 30 and the scarf was a gift from my sister-in-law." She then glanced at Zhao Zhilan and her daughter, as if they were country bumpkins who had never seen the world. Fang Minjun instantly contradicted her mother, saying the coat was 26 yuan, like her father said. Xiao Xiu told her to shut up. If mom says 30, then it's 30. She reminded Fang Minjun, your finals are coming. You must do well. You need to beat Bei Yao, understand? If you score well, mommy will reward you. Hearing the word reward, Fang Minjun nodded happily. Soon, exam day arrived. The teacher handed out the test papers to each student. After receiving them, everyone wrote their names first and was told to read the questions carefully. When Pei Chuan got his paper, he glanced at Bei Yao, worrying on her behalf. He wasn't sure if she could answer these questions. But Bei Yao began answering seriously, completely ignoring Pei Chuan beside her. Seeing her like this, Pei Chuan grew sulky again. Was nothing related to him anymore? Meanwhile, Fang Minjun followed her mother's warning, thinking Bei Yao would copy her. She hid her test paper tightly and kept glancing around to watch Bei Yao. After the exam came the winter break. The teacher handed out the results and reminded everyone to keep their test papers safe. When school resumed, she would go over the mistakes on the test. Students reacted differently to their scores, and the teacher even praised Pei Chuan specifically. Looking at the 100 points on his paper, Pei Chuan showed little emotion, simply stuffing the test into his bag, then glancing at Bei Yao again. Fang Minjun asked Bei Yao how many points she got. Bei Yao smiled and said, my drawing wasn't straight, so I lost 1 point. Fang Minjun had planned to laugh at her, but ended up becoming the joke herself. She began to worry about how to explain this to her mom. If her mother found out, the consequences would be unimaginable. Soon it was dismissal time. As usual, Pei Chuan's dad came to pick him up, but Pei Chuan was different today. He asked his dad to take Bei Yao home as well. Dad was worried. What if her mother came for her? Pei Chuan said they could tell her on the way or inform the teacher. Dad thought it made sense. In heavy snow, a little kid walking several kilometers home wasn't safe. Dad stopped the motorcycle next to Bei Yao and asked, Bei Yao, want uncle to take you home? Bei Yao agreed happily. Dad then told the teacher, I'll take Yao Yao home on the way, that if her mom comes, please let her know. After she got on, Dad reminded her to hold on to his coat tightly and not to move around. Seeing Bei Yao riding on the motorcycle made all the classmates jealous. Some said they really wanted to ride too. They had never been on a motorcycle, some had never even ridden a bicycle. Especially Fang Minjun, she couldn't understand why, since they lived in the same neighborhood, Pei Chuan's dad only took Bei Yao and not her. On the way, Pei Chuan's dad drove slowly and asked Bei Yao about her score. She said 99. Dad praised her, saying she was amazing and very smart. Hearing his dad's praise, Pei Chuan couldn't help smiling happily. After picking up Fang Minjun, her mother immediately checked her test paper. Seeing the score, she praised her daughter non-stop. She then asked how much that girl Bei Yao had scored. Fang Minjun didn't dare tell the truth and made up a number, 66. After hearing Bei Yao's score, Xiao Xiu praised her daughter even more. Meanwhile, Qin, who was miserable, his mother was scolding him loudly. You pig-headed kid. I told you to be last and you really were. After several days, little Pei Chuan met everyone again. Soon it was the new year and every household began setting off firecrackers. Here it snowed every winter and it was the happiest time for children. Because Bei Yao shared an apple with Qin, who last time he wanted to call her out to play. His booming voice echoed through the whole neighborhood. But none of this had anything to do with Pei Chuan. That moment he was quietly making dumplings at home with his mother. Originally, Jiang Wenwan just wanted to give him something to play with. After all, his body didn't allow him to move around freely, and no child was willing to spend time with someone they saw as a burden. Watching little Pei Chuan seriously making dumplings, Jiang Wenwan felt a mix of emotions. Although he learned everything quickly and was among the top students in the preschool class, such a smart and outstanding child had lost both legs, and most of his life had already been ruined. When Pei Chuan heard someone calling Bei Yao's name, he panicked and the dumpling wrapper in his hand tore. Jiang Wenwan glanced at him and Pei Chuan calmly pinched it back together. Since it was the new year, Jiang Wenwan still hoped some children would come and ask Xiao Chuan to play. But after waiting a long time and still seeing no one, she decided to stop making dumplings and personally take Pei Chuan outside. She brought Pei Chuan downstairs and the neighbors warmly greeted them as soon as they came out. Pei Chuan immediately spotted Bei Yao playing hide and seek. She was covering her eyes, waiting for her companions to hide. Pei Chuan just watched from afar, taking in everything that was happening. When Bei Yao opened her eyes to look for her friends, she suddenly noticed a familiar figure not far away. She softly called, "Pei Chuan," and her body subconsciously moved toward him. But Pei Chuan turned his head to the side. His attitude made Bei Yao too afraid to get closer. She felt sad. It seemed Pei Chuan still didn't want to play with her, so she decided to look for her playmates instead. But she searched every corner of the neighborhood and still couldn't find them. In the end, she grew so anxious that she started crying, tears dripping down one after another. Seeing this made Pei Chuan feel awful inside. Bei Yao didn't want Pei Chuan to notice. Stubborn as she was, she wiped her tears and said, "That was close. The snow almost fell into my eyes. My face is full of snow, all wet." When she walked past Pei Chuan, she suddenly heard him whisper, "Warehouse." Hearing his voice, Bei Yao secretly glanced at him. She felt she hadn't heard wrong. She didn't expect him to actually talk to her, even if he still looked cold. She strode toward the warehouse, her heart bursting with joy. And after talking to Bei Yao, Pei Chuan seemed to be in a much better mood too. To the point that Jiang Wenwan noticed something was off and asked if something had happened. Bei Yao rushed straight to the warehouse and opened a few plastic bags lying on the ground. Several round little heads immediately popped out. Qin, who couldn't believe their perfect plan had been exposed, he asked Bei Yao if she had peeked. Bei Yao hurried to explain, "I didn't peek." And just because Pei Chuan said one extra word, Bei Yao ended up being punished by her playmates. Pei Chuan had been secretly happy just moments ago for helping Bei Yao, but now it seemed he really shouldn't have interfered. After all, they hadn't invited him to play in the first place. At this moment he felt completely out of place. He tugged at his mother's sleeve and said he wanted to go home. His mother pushed his wheelchair back, confused why Pei Chuan suddenly changed. He had clearly been in a good mood just now. Bei Yao had wanted to thank him, but before she could, he was already gone. Zhao Xiao, who loved comparing Bei Yao with her own daughter, started showing off again, even while playing mahjong. "Next year, my Minmin and Jilan's Yao Yao will both enter first grade. Jilan, don't feel discouraged that if Yao Yao really can't keep up, she can stay in preschool for another year. She's still young anyway." Her words left Zhao Jilan confused. Zhao Xiao kept flaunting. "I heard Yao Yao barely passed her finals. Don't rush her. A solid foundation is the most important. I originally thought that if Minmin didn't do well, she'd repeat another year, but she scored 90. She's definitely ready for first grade." Zhao Jilan smiled. "Who told you Yao Yao barely passed? She was very good this year. She only missed a perfect score by 1 point. Zhao Xiao laughed at her, saying she didn't need to make things up to brag. Zhao Jilan replied, "Why would I make it up? Teacher Yu has all the records." Hearing this, Zhao Xiao's expression changed instantly. That if Zhao Jilan dared to say it like that, she must not be afraid of being exposed. So Bei Yao really scored 99. And the clown turned out to be herself. Shame washed over her. The other players at the mahjong table couldn't help praising Bei Yao. "This kid will definitely have a bright future. Kids her age barely know a few characters. She's truly clever." But all this praise felt like thorns in Zhao Xiao's ears. For the first time in her life, Zhao Jilan had outdone her and she couldn't accept it. Once she got home, she would question Minmin thoroughly. The moment she got home, she scolded Fong Minmin. The girl cried miserably, saying even 90 was already very good, and Qin, who only scored 50. But Zhao Xiao didn't care about the score. She only cared that Minmin must outscore Bei Yao. Minmin sobbed, "Except for Bei Yao, I scored the highest. Next time I'll beat her." With that promise, Zhao Xiao finally stopped scolding her. She only reminded her to work hard after New Year and make sure to score higher than Bei Yao. Only then did Minmin escape another round of punishment. A new semester began soon. Qin, who was still the same, and Fong Minmin remained cold and distant. As for Pei Chuan, he never spoke to Bei Yao again. It felt as if whispering to her that day had been nothing but his imagination. In a blink, the last month of preschool arrived and the final exam was suddenly cancelled. This upset Fong Minmin, who had been studying hard to surpass Bei Yao. Without the exam, would she have to wait until first grade to beat her? Everyone else was excited to enter elementary school. Only Bei Yao kept thinking of Pei Chuan. Meanwhile, Pei Chuan was troubled that his legs still hadn't grown. He remembered his mother once telling him that when he grew up, his legs would come back. Yet now he was already 6 and nothing had changed. Ever since he lost his legs, his parents argued constantly over trivial things that he had gotten used to it. But this time, because he was entering first grade and there would be no teacher to help him use the bathroom, his mom insisted on fitting him with prosthetics. And his dad strongly refused. Their fight became fierce. His father believed Pei-chuan was too young and couldn't endure the pain and training of prosthetics. His mother believed he couldn't rely on others forever. Even if it cost everything, she wanted him to stand again. Every word pierced Pei-chuan's heart. He knew all their arguments were because of him. Ever since he wet himself in kindergarten, he never asked a teacher for help again. His mother had told him his legs would return when he grew up. Every night he looked at his legs before sleeping, but nothing ever changed. That he didn't really understand what prosthetics were. He only knew he truly wanted to stand again. As time passed, more memories from fourth grade resurfaced clearly in little Bei Yao's mind. Two major things had happened in fourth grade. First, the road from home to school had been under construction, so all the kids in the neighborhood had to take the small path every day. Second, her uncle hit someone with his car in fourth grade and had to pay a huge amount of compensation. Her mom had no choice but to use all her savings to cover that bottomless hole. She couldn't recall all the details, but she knew neither event had been good. Zhao Zhilan brought Bei Yao to her first grade classroom. This semester's homeroom teacher was a woman named Kai Qingyu, who even praised Bei Yao when she saw her. When Bei Yao looked up at the teacher, she was stunned. In her previous life, her first grade teacher had been named Hong Guanjing, with a terrible temper who would hit students' palms for mistakes in homework. But she soon realized that in this life she skipped a full year of kindergarten, and her path was already completely different from before. Having a different teacher made sense. If that was the case, did it mean everything about her future would also become unpredictable? Kai Qingyu also took special care of Pei-chuan to keep him from overthinking. She picked out the kids who lived in the same neighborhood as him, and said, "Let's play a little game. You point to one name among these and she'll become your desk mate." Teacher Yu Qian had told her earlier that Pei-chuan was very sensitive, and that he had never once asked a teacher for help using the bathroom in preschool. That if possible, she hoped the new teacher could look after him a bit more. Fortunately, the 4 children she chose all lived in the same community as Pei-chuan, so they could help look after him. Looking at the names on the paper, Pei-chuan chose seriously. After all, he was just a preschool kid and didn't recognize many characters. Fang Minjun's name had 3 characters. The one with the big D character must be Li Da, and he remembered Bei Yao saying she scored 99. Preschool had taught him one thing. If he didn't fight for it, Bei Yao would end up as someone else's desk mate, and he would have nothing. Life had never been kind to him. He needed to be selfish for once. Without hesitation, he pointed at the name of the one who scored 99. When Bei Yao learned her desk mate would be Pei-chuan, she was overjoyed. Before class started, she asked him to play with her colorful counting sticks. Just then, Zhao Xiu came into the classroom with Fang Minjun. From afar she glanced at Pei-chuan, already mocking him in her heart. Minjun had told her he scored first in class. Smart or not, a disabled boy was still a disabled boy. In the future, finding a job or getting married would all be problems. What family would let their daughter marry someone like that? Pei-chuan didn't know how to back down. That he was like a fragile sprout standing tall in last year's hailstorm, resisting wind and rain, only to be snapped by the strongest gust. But Bei Yao was soft and tender, using the greatest gentleness a child could have to accept the cold edges he carried. In the heat of summer, Pei-chuan, who never drank water at school, began bringing an extra cup, and that cup would eventually cross the borderline and appear on little Bei Yao's desk. Because he didn't open his mouth during choir, the legless Pei-chuan was scolded by the teacher. She asked why he didn't sing with everyone. "Your legs are injured, but your mouth works. Acting like this is disrespectful to the teacher, understand? From now on, I sing one line and you follow with one line." Pei-chuan tried his best to follow the rhythm. It was his tooth-changing period, so his voice leaked air and sounded a bit raspy. After just a few lines, a wave of laughter broke out among the classmates. He was off-key and his teeth made his voice whistle. He had long grown numb to these sounds. The teacher grew impatient too. Laughing. "What's so funny about learning to sing?" She told him to continue following her. Bei Yao knew he was embarrassed. She carefully glanced at him. Even though she was scared of the teacher too, she wanted even more to help him. Before Pei Chuan could make a sound, she suddenly burst into loud singing, making the quiet classroom explode again. Especially Chin Hu, who started pounding on his desk, laughing that Bei Yao was way too funny. The teacher hadn't even told her to sing and none of her notes were on pitch. Pei Chuan glanced at Bei Yao and he remembered that when the teacher was teaching everyone to sing earlier, Bei Yao wasn't off-key at all. She had been helping him out. Bei Yao noticed his gaze. Being stared at like that made her feel embarrassed, her face instantly turning red. She thought maybe she should smile at him. Otherwise it would be too awkward. So she smiled and met his eyes. That smile made him embarrassed instead that he quickly turned his head away, thinking, without my front teeth I look horrible. Time passed quickly and soon they were in 3rd grade. Little Bei Yao had grown a lot taller, and they were still desk mates. But today Bei Yao wasn't wearing her hair ribbons anymore, nor the 2 little pigtails. Pei Chuan noticed right away and asked, "Where's your ribbon?" Bei Yao said her mom felt 2 pigtails were too childish for a 3rd grader, so she lost them. She brushed the hair by her cheek, looked at Pei Chuan and smiled, asking, "How is it? Does this hairstyle look good?" Pei Chuan took one glance, then quickly turned away again and muttered, "Doesn't look good." His answer disappointed Bei Yao deeply. She thought to herself, it really isn't as pretty as Min's. After school, Pei Chuan happened to see Bei Yao's mom coming down to throw out the trash. After she left, Pei Chuan quickly opened the garbage bag to search, and he found the little hair ribbon Bei Yao had thrown away. He murmured to himself, why isn't she wearing it anymore? Do people change when they grow up? Just like in Bei Yao's memories, the road from Chaoyang Elementary School to the neighborhood in City C started reconstruction. The once narrow path was now piled with cement and stones. Little Bei Yao sadly realized everything was just like she remembered. Her uncle had hit and killed someone with his car, her mom emptied their savings to help pay, and her family had become very poor. Pei Chuan was picked up on a motorcycle by Pei Haobin. On the way, he saw Bei Yao walking with 2 other little girls, all 3 of them smiling. As always, Pei Haobin shielded him at the front of the motorcycle. Pei Chuan suddenly said, "Dad, next time I want to sit in the back. I want to sit behind you. The front is safer and I can keep an eye on you." The boy didn't explain much and only said, "I'll sit in the back and hold your clothes." Pei Chuan knew his legs weren't good, so he followed his mom's guidance to train his arm strength. At 7 p.m. Jiang Wenwan spoke while eating. "A friend I know from the hospital said Xiao Chuan's condition is suitable for prosthetics now. She has a friend who does this professionally." Pei Haobin frowned. "Is it reliable?" "Of course." Jiang Wenwan looked at Pei Chuan gently. "Xiao Chuan will be able to stand soon. Happy?" Pei Chuan stayed silent and only curved his lips a little. Seeing that, Pei Haobin didn't say anything more. 10 days later, Pei Chuan was fitted with prosthetic legs. He had almost forgotten what walking felt like. Training with prosthetics was exhausting. For an entire winter, Pei Chuan kept doing the same simple, boring exercises. Those weren't his legs. They were cold and without warmth. At first he couldn't find his balance and fell hard twice, yet he didn't cry. Holding on to the bars, he practiced seriously and with full focus, sweating through the winter air. Jiang Wenwan covered her mouth as she watched her son stumble and walk, tears falling uncontrollably. When spring arrived, Pei Chuan could walk with his prosthetics. With his pant legs down, he looked no different from any other child. Looking at himself in the mirror, he saw the prosthetics were made to his proportions. Pei Chuan suddenly realized that if he grew normally, he would be taller than many boys. When 4th grade began, the kids were shocked. Pei Chuan could stand now. The cold, friendless boy had become strikingly handsome this year. Bei Yao was only a year younger, yet she was half a head shorter than him with his prosthetics. The children didn't really understand what prosthetics were. To them, Pei Chuan standing and walking felt like a miracle from a cartoon. Even the proud little princess Fang Minjun couldn't help glancing at him several times in amazement. Bei Yao stared blankly at him. Now in 4th grade, her memories had expanded all the way to 8th grade. Seeing her cold, silent, high above the rest desk mate doing homework, she remembered something far away in her past life. Pei Chuan had gotten prosthetics in that life too. But later he rejected them and went back to the wheelchair. And that incident had something to do with her. Hua Ting carried her pink snow-white backpack and stood by Bei Yao's desk, waiting to walk home together. Feeling uneasy, Bei Yao waved her hand. "You two go ahead. My stomach hurts. I need to use the bathroom." Hua Ting answered softly and left with another little girl. Bei Yao walked to the bathroom slowly. Pei Chuan held onto the desk for support as he stood up. After everyone left, he slowly headed toward the school gate alone. Bei Yao quietly poked her little head out, then put on her backpack and jogged after him. Pei Chuan's way of walking was a little strange. He moved very slowly like a snail climbing a green stem, working hard with each step. Watching this made Bei Yao's heart ache. Soon, the boy turned his head sharply. She froze, looking at him through the chilly October air. Pei Chuan's eyes were cold. Bei Yao quickly lowered her head and walked past him. Only after she walked some distance did Pei Chuan continue forward. What did she mean by that? Walking slowly on purpose, staying behind to laugh at him. Is she really that curious about how a cripple walks? As Bei Yao walked past the street, she heard someone mention Pei Chuan. Ding Wenxiang, do you know there's a boy in our school's 4th grade who doesn't have legs? Ding Wenxiang of course knew that. He clapped his hands and said, yeah, I've seen him sitting. You're right, but I heard a couple of days ago that he has legs again and can walk now. Do you think he got an artificial leg? How can a fake leg walk like a real one? A fake leg. Ding Wenxiang looked at his own incomplete hand. I have to go see. I know the small path he takes after school. He walks super slow. Like a turtle. I'll take you there. When Bei Yao heard it, her heart jumped in fear. It was him. Ding Wenxiang and the group cut through the main road and rushed toward the small path. He didn't even blink, staring at Pei Chuan's legs, grabbing his collar. Kid, let me see your fake leg. Pei Chuan's pupils were pitch black and he said nothing. He reached out to pry that hand off. Ding Wenxiang originally thought this weak-looking 2 years younger cripple would be no threat, but that hand twisted his left hand so hard it hurt. Ding Wenxiang was forced to let go, but it only made him angrier. A 12-year-old has endless destructive power and a huge ego. Ding Wenxiang said hold him down and the boys swarmed forward. They pinned Pei Chuan to the ground and rolled him over. Pei Chuan grew furious, but even with strong arms he couldn't fight off several boys 2 or 3 years older. They pressed down his cheeks and arms. Pei Chuan knew what they were going to do. The calm on his face vanished and he struggled like a crazed little beast. Let go of me. Let go of me. Ding Wenxiang's hand still hurt. He kicked Pei Chuan and cursed like he heard from his mother. You little beast. It was the after-school rush hour. 3rd graders and 1st and 2nd graders were playing along the small path. Many saw the scene and someone whispered, that's Ding Wenxiang from 6th grade, he's notorious at school. The scattered kids stared wide-eyed, but none dared to step in. Pei Chuan's fingers dug into the muddy ground, and for the first time he felt the urge to wish everyone dead. If they died, if all of them died, that would be great. Ding Wenxiang crouched down to undo Pei Chuan's shoelaces. His laces were long, wrapped several times around the pant leg. He didn't want anyone to see the abnormal colored prosthetic. The shoelaces came undone quickly. If the pant leg was lifted, underneath would be the cold, lifeless false leg. That moment, a sharp pain hit Ding Wenxiang's back and he screamed. He turned back viciously. A little girl held a tree branch as thick as 3 fingers and struck him again. Bei Yao was terrified. In her limited memories of 2 lifetimes, she had never fought before. Ding Wenxiang glared at her. Her hands trembled. But she still gripped the branch and stood in front of Pei Chuan. Let him go. Let Pei Chuan go. Her hands shook, but she still stood there shielding him. Ding Wenxiang snapped, a little girl like you dares to stand up for him? Bei Yao bit her lip and said nothing. Ding Wenxiang rubbed his shoulder, his voice icy. You hit pretty hard just now. Want to try a few more swings? Bei Yao, frightened, stepped back a few paces. If you come any closer I won't be nice. Ding Wenxiang reached out his big hand to grab her. Annoying brat. Don't think I won't hit you just because you're a girl. Bei Yao struggled desperately. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. Pei Chuan's half-mud-stained, handsome face tilted up from the dirt as he watched coldly. It was the first time he had ever seen Bei Yao cry. She cried while swinging the thick branch at the boys. She said, I'll tell Teacher Kai. And I'll tell my uncle. My uncle is a police officer. He'll arrest all of you. The word police terrified them and they all bolted. Bei Yao began sobbing. She remembered this scene. Exactly the same. Only in her last life she had been one of the younger kids watching. Pei Chuan's pant leg was finally lifted. She saw the cold prosthetic that looked different from a real leg. All the children showed a mix of curiosity and unease. Her friend pulled her back a step, whispering that fake leg is so scary. Lying in the mud, his dark eyes watched her slowly quiet down. After that day, Beiyao never saw Pei Chuan wear his prosthetics again. He returned to the wheelchair. But in this life she ran back. Holding a heavy tree branch, carrying the weight of several years, she crouched beside him, tears streaking her soft, fair cheeks. Pei Chuan's lifeless pupils shifted slightly as he turned his head toward her. She dropped the branch, trembling, looking even more frightened than he was. A little girl like her might only fight a battle like this once in her whole life. For the first time, he reached out his hand to her and calmly said, "Beiyao, let's go home." Beiyao's big eyes were red like a little rabbit's. She sniffled and reached out her hand. Then she forced herself to stand, unsteady but determined, following behind Pei Chuan. The late-setting sun revealed half its face. He didn't comfort her, nor wipe her tears, just listened to her cry the whole way. "Pei Chuan, I'm scared. Will we get in trouble?" "No, it hurts a little. She brushed her teary eyes with the back of her soft hand. "Tomorrow, let's walk home together." After a long silence, he said, "Okay." Starting that year, every winter and summer break, Pei Chuan would put on boxing gloves and begin training in boxing. Time flew by and they were now in 6th grade, out on a spring outing. Rumor had it that Ding Wenxiang, now in 8th grade, was beaten into the hospital by some street punks that it caused no real stir, just gossip for 2 days before the kids forgot about it. Beiyao was playing with her classmates when her gaze drifted into the distance. The boy sat alone on the lawn, reading. They were about to graduate elementary school, yet this solitary boy still didn't have a single friend. In her previous life, she had never paid attention to Pei Chuan during adolescence. In her story, he was an insignificant character. She vaguely remembered that in the year she became pretty in 8th grade, Pei Chuan in 9th grade became a completely different person. A full-blown troublemaker. All the kids in their neighborhood had been warned not to get close to him, because he started hanging out with street thugs, surrounded by fierce-looking friends. Why did it turn out like that? She watched him silently reading. Right now, he was clearly a good student. She wanted to know the truth. Pei Chuan looked up and met her gaze, and she casually turned her eyes away, toward a patch of slightly darker peach-colored ground. He narrowed his eyes. "Why are you staring at me?" Beiyao glanced back at him. "If you weren't looking at me, how would you know I'm looking at you?" Pei Chuan lowered his eyes to the lunchbox in his hand. "You want to eat my food?" Beiyao instantly frowned. "Do I look like a greedy little pig to you?" Suddenly, a girl screamed. Everyone turned, her face went pale. "A snake." She had stood on tiptoe to look at some flowers, not expecting a snake, awake from winter and hunting, coiled in the soft grass. The girl panicked and ran toward the others, startling the 2-finger-thick snake, which shot through the woods in a frenzy. In an instant, the girls in the class ran in all directions, screams echoing. Teacher Kai Qingyu's heartbeat spiked. "Beiyao, Hua Ting, move away. The snake is coming toward you." Beiyao's legs went weak. She had feared these wriggling creatures in both lifetimes. Hua Ting dragged her away, her little face turning pale. But in their chaotic escape, Hua Ting accidentally pulled her straight toward Pei Chuan. Pei Chuan pressed his lips together, bent down, and grabbed the snake right at its vital spot. It instantly lost all strength. He picked up a stone and smashed its head a few times. The snake stopped moving. But in that moment, the stares from their classmates made him freeze. They looked at him with shock, and something close to fear. After dealing with the snake, he suddenly realized they were looking at him the same way they looked at the snake. If it were another boy catching it, everyone would probably admire him like a hero. But because it was Pei Chuan, everything was different. He was withdrawn, quiet, and his actions seemed too ruthless. The classmates looked at him like they didn't know him at all, afraid to come closer. Even Teacher Kai frowned as she glanced at the snake. The next second she composed herself, smiled, and eased the tension. "Classmate Pei Chuan is very brave. He just saved everyone. You should thank him." The peach grove fell silent. No one said a word. Pei Chuan almost wanted to let out a cold laugh. Beiyao watched the boy's lonely back. He stood there with an unconscious snake beside him, and no one dared to approach. Beiyao pulled her hand free from Hua Ting, took out a tissue from her backpack and walked over. She was shorter than him, even with his prosthetic. She lifted her face. "Thank you, Pei Chuan." Pei Chuan lowered his gaze. She had grown up. Her voice was as gentle as early spring. "We were all scared. thanks for catching it. Wipe your hands. Hua Ting gathered her courage too and shouted, thank you, Pei Chuan. Pei Chuan took the tissue and wiped away the cold, slippery feeling on his hand. The classmates snapped out of their daze and began to applaud. A girl said, he's amazing. Even that kind of snake he dared to grab. Chin Hu heard it and was instantly unhappy. The chubby boy hadn't slimmed down at all over the years. He snorted, that's nothing that I could have grabbed it too. Chin Hu, you only brag. I saw you, you jumped back too. I didn't. You did. Chin Hu's face flushed red as he argued with the girls about whether he was brave or not. At that moment, Bei Yao walked closer to Pei Chuan. Pei Chuan averted his eyes and said flatly, don't come over. It's not dead. She froze, staring at him with wide apricot-shaped eyes. Pei Chuan paused for 2 seconds, then picked up a branch and used it to lift the snake, carrying it farther away. The incident during the spring outing drew the school's attention. After 2002, teachers were no longer allowed to take a class on spring or autumn trips alone. After this incident, Pei Chuan's popularity in class actually improved. That he had always kept a cold face and no one talked to him. Now the boy in front of him even gathered the courage to ask, can I borrow your eraser? I'll return it when I'm done. Even the student behind him started asking Pei Chuan for help with questions. Bei Yao realized that Pei Chuan was very smart. He could solve a single math problem in many different ways. When he explained things, he didn't like to talk. He would simply write down the steps. But the steps were so simple and clear that people understood immediately. Bei Yao was amazed. How could he be so smart? When they graduated from primary school in 2002, Pei Chuan was the top student in the entire grade. Under the sycamore tree, the young boys and girls took a group photo, ending their elementary school lives. The 6th grade summer vacation was long and quiet. Zhao Zilan spent the whole year dealing with Zhao Xiu's constant provocations like, what's the use of your daughter getting good grades? My daughter is angelic. That's what matters. After work, Zhao Zilan looked at Bei Yao's still baby-faced cheeks. Your aunt opened a dance class. How about I send you to learn dance? Bei Yao shook her head. I'm too old to learn well now. Mainly, she didn't like her sharp-tongued aunt. Her uncle's family had borrowed money from them and hadn't returned a single cent in over 3 years, and probably never would. You can't just stay home all vacation. You need to move around. There weren't many girls in the neighborhood. Fang Minjun was aloof and Bei Yao couldn't play with her, so she spent most of her vacation at home. Then how about I follow along with exercise DVDs? Okay, I'll buy you 2 new discs tomorrow. At the end of July, sunlight spilled across the floor. When Pei Chuan casually pushed open the window, he happened to see Bei Yao doing her workout across the way, her movements carrying a mix of girlish softness and elegance. She raised her arms high. Because of the heat, Bei Yao wore a light green tank top. As she moved, the hem lifted, revealing a flash of pale, soft waist, slim and delicate, barely the width of a hand. Pei Chuan's expression shifted and he snapped the curtains shut. For the rest of that summer vacation, he never opened them again. In junior high, classes were arranged according to 6th grade final exam rankings. Class 7 and Class 8 were the advanced classes. The rest were regular. Chin Hu proudly entered Class 6, and immediately secured the spot of absolute last place. Class 7 also had many familiar faces. Fang Minjun, Hua Ting and Li Da, who barely scraped his way in. Chin Hu almost cried over this. All the neighborhood kids got into the top academic classes except him, and he got beaten by his father again. On the first day of 7th grade, students were free to choose their seats. Hua Ting happily clung to Bei Yao's arm and sat beside her. Bei Yao subconsciously glanced at Pei Chuan. Some short-haired girl in a long skirt had already sat down next to him. Bei Yao froze for a moment. A faint pang rose in her chest, though she reminded herself she should probably feel happy for him instead. She couldn't tell whether Pei Chuan wanted to be desk mates again, but 6 years of that invisible desk boundary made her feel he probably didn't like her much. Back in elementary school, Pei Chuan was always in a wheelchair and everyone knew about his disability. Now in a new environment without Chin Hu's loud mouth around, people naturally drew closer to him. Pei Chuan looked back at Bei Yao with a cold expression. That he had already taken a seat in the first row by the window, yet she didn't come over. Was she finally happy to be rid of this cripple? A heavy weight pressed in his chest, making him irritable. Summer hadn't fully passed. The air was still dry. He no longer forced himself not to drink water, But the water in his bottle was originally prepared for Bei Yao, an old habit he couldn't shake. At dusk, he suddenly twisted open the bottle and drank everything in one go. After school, Bei Yao ran up, chasing after Pei Chuan. Hearing the footsteps behind him, Pei Chuan's lips tightened with annoyance and coldness. Go back with Hua Ting. Bei Yao blinked in confusion. Hua Ting's house isn't this way. He grew even angrier. Don't follow me. Aren't you tired of this? Bei Yao felt a sting of sadness. She didn't understand why he was upset. The girl's voice trembled slightly. My house is in this direction. Pei Chuan had only two modes since childhood, cold or downright fierce. Even after a full week of school, the two still hadn't made up. She wore a red and white school uniform and immediately followed when she saw Pei Chuan passing by. Pei Chuan, are you still mad? Pei Chuan was extremely irritated that he couldn't even explain what he was angry about. Childish and baseless, even to himself. Bei Yao wasn't upset by his coldness. She walked beside him, humming softly. She was singing Rong's was 2003 song My Pride, her voice light and gentle, sounding beautiful. Pei Chuan slowed down and walked side by side with her. Her steps were lively. Though it was autumn, she carried the warmth and brightness of spring. Pei Chuan, do you think our Chinese teacher is pretty? He paused. Not pretty. Bei Yao felt a little disappointed. Their Chinese teacher had a fresh, pure kind of beauty, similar to how Bei Yao remembered herself looking after she slimmed down in 8th grade. So, Pei Chuan probably thought she wouldn't look good in the future either. Pei Chuan, can we make up? She bit her lip. Grandma Zhou's new dog barks at me every time it sees me. I've been scared walking home these days. Pei Chuan suddenly turned around, looking down at her. So I'm only useful for scaring away dogs? Her bright almond-shaped eyes reflected his face, then slowly curved like blooming peach blossoms. No, I'm not scared when you're here. And if it runs at us, I'll protect you. The balloon swelling inside his chest felt as if something poked a hole in it, air rushing out all at once. At her doorstep, she hesitated. Pei Chuan, are we okay now? He said, shut up and go home. Bei Yao understood what he meant right away and she smiled happily. Pei Chuan felt useless. He clearly hadn't planned to forgive her so easily. Yet somehow they just made up again. In the spring of the second semester of 7th grade, something big happened among the kids in their neighborhood. Fang Minjun's family bought an apartment downtown and would move after the new year. It matched Bei Yao's memories exactly. The Fang family would gradually get richer, because in 2 years housing prices would surge. A whole group of kids watched Fang Minjun get on the motorcycle, reluctant to see her leave. Bei Yao also came to send her off. 7th grade Bei Yao wasn't very tall yet and could only stand at the back of the crowd. She saved a month's allowance to buy a small bunny coin purse for Minjun. The proud Minjun accepted everyone's gifts, chin raised slightly. Pei Chuan stood far away, watching coldly, completely out of place. Bei Yao had saved her allowance. She knew she hadn't bought a single candy or a single drink for an entire month. Minjun had compared herself to Bei Yao for over 10 years. She didn't like Bei Yao, but she couldn't truly dislike her either. Bei Yao was like a soft little moon, gentle without a single sharp edge. In late spring, Qin Hu and Li Do were squatting on the ground digging into an ant nest. When Pei Chuan came downstairs to throw out the trash and walked past the corner, Li Do grinned. Qin Hu, you've been upset these days. Did I guess it because Fang Minjun moved away? Stop lying. Do you like her? Qin Hu's ears turned red. Bullshit, of course not. That if you like her, then go tell her yourself. Or walk her home after school. Qin Hu muttered, no way. My cousin said keeping some distance makes you look better. Kids don't like clingy boys. If you get too close, they'll treat you like an older brother. Pei Chuan heard this and froze for a few seconds. Once he realized what it meant, he instantly vanished from in front of Bei Yao. Bei Yao had been feeling anxious lately because in her memories, Pei Chuan's parents divorced in middle school. But right now, nothing had happened yet, and 8th grade was coming soon. 8th grade had many major events, like Pei Chuan's drastic change in personality, and Fang Minjun's appearance beginning to change, and how the Hong Kong star Chong Shui fell from grace after getting involved in someone else's family. And herself, she finally regained memories from 10th grade. She looked at her own soft, pale face in the mirror. In her memory, after this winter, she would transform like a butterfly emerging from its cocoon. The memories were faint and distant. She even wondered if she would really become the stunning campus beauty she remembered. The boy's figure was still slightly thinned as he sat in his wheelchair, a long black blanket covering his legs. Just then, click, the door opened. Pei Haobin walked in with Bei Yao. Xiao Chuan, Bei Yao's here. You two play together that I need to go out for a bit. Why are you standing there? Come here. Bei Yao was extremely embarrassed. Just like when she was little, she stepped into his room nervously, even holding her breath. Diasit, homework you can't do. No. Bei Yao hugged her winter homework and asked, can you contact Fong Minjun? Pei Chuan lifted his eyes and said coldly, none of your business. We grew up together, aren't you worried about her? Pei Chuan paused, he almost laughed. Bei Yao thought too highly of him. Fong Minjun. Why would he care whether she was fine or not? But when he met her serious eyes, he instinctively felt he couldn't say those words out loud. That he glanced at her. She looked like a little quail, embarrassed enough to want to disappear. He turned his wheelchair toward the landline in the living room. Bei Yao followed closely behind. The boy's fingers pressed a few numbers on the keypad, and when he lowered his head, he met her big, bright, expectant eyes watching him from a crouched position. He looked away and spoke quietly, hello teacher, this is Pei Chuan. Could you give me Fong Minjun's home number? Reason. She left something at my house when they moved last time. I should let her know to come get it. Yes, thank you teacher. I'll write it down. He hung up, pressed a few more numbers and then handed the receiver to Bei Yao. Bei Yao held the phone. The call connected quickly. Zhao Xiu's voice came through. Who is it? Auntie Xiu, it's Bei Yao. Can I talk to Minmin? Hold on, I'll go get her. After a long wait, just when Bei Yao started feeling uneasy, a hoarse girl's voice finally came on. Minmin, it's me, Bei Yao. Pei Chuan's dark eyes quietly watched the little girl making the call. Her slightly wavy hair fell down her back. She wore a light blue outfit, fingers nervously pulling at the tiny buckle on her hem. Pei Chuan heard her say, Minmin, the wintersweet tree in our neighborhood bloomed today. It smells so good. My mom made sausages too. They're delicious. I'll bring some for you when school starts, okay? And someday, let's go to the new amusement park together. People say it's really big. I've never been to an amusement park in my life. Will you go with me? Don't cry, she said gently. You're Fong Minjun, not Chang Shui. You are just yourself. On the other end, the girl's once cold face crumbled into hysterical sobbing. She still had a fruit knife hidden in her pocket. When Bei Yao called, she had actually planned to cut herself. The name Fong Minjun carried more than 10 years of pride and shame tied to Chang Shui. Now, with her belief shattered, she could barely breathe, but this phone call finally let her cry freely. Yes. She was only 12, she had never been to the new amusement park, never seen the wintersweet tree at the neighborhood gate bloom. She feared pain and she didn't really want to die. She longed for someone, anyone, to save her. But she never imagined that person would be Bei Yao, the girl who had always lived under Chang Shui's shadow. Bei Yao hung up the phone and finally noticed Pei Chuan's eyes, colder than before. She reached into her pocket and said softly, sorry, I used your phone for so long. I'll pay you back. She pulled out a 50 yuan bill, almost her entire little savings. Pei Chuan let out a cold laugh. You're really generous. And what is Fong Minjun to you? That's all your money, right? Or do you treat everyone like this? Bei Yao felt confused. Fong Minjun wasn't anyone special to her, but she had thought about it. If she were in Fong Minjun's situation, she'd break down too. And if this kept going, things could get serious. Pei Chuan felt a surge of irritation. She comforted Fong Minjun the same way she used to comfort him. Maybe one day she'd comfort Qin Hu, Li Dai, or anyone else. So he slapped the money out of her hand. From beginning to end, in Bei Yao's heart, he was no different from Fong Minjun, Qin Hu, or Li Dai. Just another pitiful kid who needed help, right? The door slammed shut in front of her. For the first time, Bei Yao felt a bit wronged. She was only 12, still an age where she needed someone to coax her. She often didn't understand why Pei Chuan got angry, just as she didn't know how to make this deep-minded boy happy. But to Pei Chuan, Bei Yao was different. Different from everyone. Bei Yao blinked, eyes stinging, and in the end didn't knock on his door. She simply left the Pei house. After some time, Bei Yao remembered Pei Chuan's birthday was coming, so she bought a safety knot charm to give him. Since Pei Chuan was already upset and being so petty, if she also acted petty, how would they ever talk again? Hua Ting snorted, why are you so nice to him? He's not nice to you at all. But Bei Yao said he'll be better when he grows up. You say it like you know. Right then she saw Pei Chuan. Bei Yao was just about to call out to him to give him the birthday gift. But a girl suddenly stepped up. You're Pei Chuan, right? I'm Shang Mengxian from Class 1, Grade 8. I heard there's a little park being built near your place. Can you take me to see it? No. Shang Mengxian's smile stiffened for a second. It's fine. I can go myself. A faint trace of mockery appeared on Pei Chuan's otherwise expressionless face. Hua Ting saw all this and couldn't help mocking. This Shang Mengxian competed with Fong Minjun for the school beauty spot, and now she's coming after Pei Chuan. What is she trying to do? Speaking of Fong Minjun, I can't believe she lost so much weight over just one winter break. Poor girl. Chang Shui made the mistake. She didn't. Bei Yao watched them walk away, holding the safety knot charm close to her chest. For the first time she wondered if the words in that little notebook were really true. Could this cold, distant Pei Chuan ever love someone like the note said, treasuring them like his very heart? Her mind was 12, and though she carried a few extra years of memory, she wasn't truly at the age of first love. Pei Chuan had made a new friend. A very pretty girl at that, and she was genuinely happy for him. Shang Mengxian stayed at his side, talking non-stop. Hey, does your teacher Zhang speak with an accent? Her tone goes up at the end. Pei Chuan glanced at a familiar stone nearby. Bei Yao usually waited for him there. Did she go home early today? As he thought about it, he didn't even hear what Shang Mengxian was saying, he just gave a faint After walking all the way without hearing him speak, Shang Mengxian lit up instantly at his reply. Proudly she thought, see, he does talked at what's with the cold act, he was probably sneaking glances at me the whole time. Pei Chuan looked toward the old apartment building ahead, his expression turning darker. His fingers brushed the latch on the iron gate beside him, and it opened easily, the metal clattered sharply. Suddenly, a mangy stray dog burst out from inside the community, barking furiously. Shang Mengxian screamed and darted away. You stupid dog, get lost. She kept screaming while hiding behind Pei Chuan, trying to push him forward to deal with the mangy dog. A flash of coldness crossed Pei Chuan's eyes as he was about to step aside. Then he saw Bei Yao in the distance holding a gift bag. His whole body froze. Did she see me opening the gate? The dog barked twice and lunged forward. Shang Mengxian's shrill scream pierced the air. It was early May, warm outside, yet he felt frozen in place, too stiff to dodge. Bei Yao ran toward them. She didn't even care about the gift anymore. She grabbed a stone and threw it at the dog. Go away. Don't bite people. Her hands trembled, but the stone hit its mark. The mutt yelped and spun toward her, barking fiercely. Bei Yao scooped up a handful of stones and threw them wildly, accuracy forgotten. She stood in front of him, shaking, yelling at the dog, still not leaving. I'll hit you again. The dog finally tucked its tail and ran back through the gate. Bei Yao stood on tiptoe, she wasn't as tall as Pei Chuan, and secured the latch. Pei Chuan. Her voice trembled with worry. Did it bite you? Does it hurt anywhere? Pei Chuan stared at her for a long moment like a machine rebooting before quietly saying no. They walked home together. Bei Yao, usually talkative, said nothing the entire way. She must have seen everything. Pei Chuan lowered his gaze to the bag in her hand. What are you carrying? She lifted it slightly. This. Your birthday present. Pei Chuan. Happy birthday. Congrats on being 1 year older. He took the bag and seeing no change in her expression, he knew she hadn't seen anything. Bei Yao hesitated. Pei Chuan. That new friend of yours isn't good at all. She wanted to push you forward. Can you not play with her anymore? Her voice was nervous. Pei Chuan answered softly, okay. She thought she had successfully turned him. With a bit of shy pride, she cleared her throat. The sunset stretched her warm shadow long across the ground. Hands in his pockets, Pei Chuan watched her back. That if he didn't speak, she would never know he was a poisonous snake, not a harmless lamb. She hated malicious people. If one day she found out she was no different from Shang Mengxian, maybe even worse, what would she do? After that day, Grandma Zhou's dog was tied up, so neither of them kept the Shang Mengxian incident in mind. But unexpectedly, within just a few days, things took a turn against Pei Chuan. A boy from the back row of class 7 and 8 said in the bathroom, I thought he was all cold and aloof, but he's secretly sucking up to Shang Mengxian, and even took her to the new park. Another boy agreed with him. He didn't even think about his own qualifications. A toad wanting to eat a swan. As if Shang Mengxian would ever like a cripple missing a leg. Bei Yao felt they were unbearable and was just about to step forward to argue back. But a girl spoke faster than her. You guys spend all day making up nonsense about people that I think you're the disgusting ones. Bei Yao looked over and realized it was Fong Minjun. After losing weight, her face looked even sharper. What's wrong with Pei Chuan? He has good character, good grades, and he doesn't gossip like you loudmouths behind people's backs. The boy's face flushed. Fong Minjun, you're just jealous of Shang Mengxian, that's why you're defending him. Fong Minjun sneered. Jealous? Of what? There are plenty of girls prettier than Shang Mengxian. Yeah, and none of those prettier girls would ever like Pei Chuan. The boy laughed wildly. Fong Minjun couldn't out-argue him and was fuming. Bei Yao suddenly jumped out. Good dogs don't block the road. Talk nonsense like that again and your mouth will rot. The boy followed everyone's line of sight and saw Pei Chuan walking out of the shadows. Feeling guilty, they rushed away with excuses. Pei Chuan knew their words were cruel. But no girl would be so open-hearted as to accept his disability without hesitation. Especially not a pretty one. His dark eyes quietly settled on Bei Yao. When she grows up, what will she look like? To him, loving and being loved were luxuries. Far, far away. But Bei Yao felt all of this started because of Shang Mengxian. After school, she needed to go find her. She couldn't let Pei Chuan suffer such needless trouble. After school, she happened to run into Shang Mengxian, who was chatting and laughing with others. Boys are all the same. I walked with him for a bit and he started talking to me first. The girls beside her echoed, you're probably the prettiest girl he's ever seen. Yeah, he must have been excited. Bei Yao cut them off. Senior Shang, can I talk to you for a moment? Shang Mengxian stopped laughing and looked at her. The little girl in front of her was still somewhere between child and teen. Her cheeks soft and round with baby fat, her features delicate and cute. Shang Mengxian frowned. Fine, Bei? Bei Yao got straight to the point. Do you remember me? I was the one who chased the dog away that day. Shang Mengxian replied reluctantly, I remember. Senior, people have been saying awful things about Pei Chuan. Could you explain what really happened to everyone? Explain what? I wasn't the one spreading those rumors. But you were the one who followed Pei Chuan home. If you hadn't bothered him, none of this would have happened. Bei Yao saw that Shang Mengxian didn't deny it and instantly knew she had guessed right. It was Shang Mengxian who approached Pei Chuan first. And what does that have to do with me? He didn't even come to find me. Or, what is he to you? Why are you sticking your nose in? Shang Mengxian could guess this little girl was probably his friend. After all, Bei Yao was the one who bravely chased away that barking dog even while trembling with fear. Still, she was certain. This immature little girl couldn't possibly have any real connection with Pei Chuan. A boy like that. Who would choose to be close to him? But she didn't expect Bei Yao's face to harden. The small girl lifted her pale face, speaking each word with startling seriousness. He's someone I've protected for almost 10 years. He's not some toy or cripple in your eyes. He's the boy I grew up coaxing and caring for. I want him to be safe his whole life. Just like before, even if he stays cold and hard to please, I want him to grow up healthy and happy. Bei Yao's negotiation failed, but she didn't lose heart. There was only so much she could do. Since Shang Mengxian refused to explain, Bei Yao explained things one by one herself. Thankfully, that conversation brought one small change. Shang Mengxian stopped approaching Pei Chuan. That tiny but persistent effort lasted for a long time, until they entered 8th grade and the old rumors slowly faded away. Later, Shang Mengxian started dating a boy and everyone finally let go of the gossip about Pei Chuan. Knowing Pei Chuan had a sharp memory, Bei Yao asked after school, don't you think Shang Mengxian's boyfriend looks familiar? Pei Chuan didn't even glance over. No. Bei Yao kicked a pebble. Is it because you didn't see clearly or because you don't remember? He shot her a look. Stop worrying about other people. Focus on the entrance exams. He paused, then asked, which high school do you want to get into? Her eyes sparkled. Number 6 high. It's closer to home. He gave a soft reply and quietly memorized it. Walking beside him, Bei Yao whispered, I'll tell you a secret. My mom is having a baby boy. Pei Chuan glanced at her, surprised. Her steps were lively like a little sparrow, but her voice was hushed. At the latest, he'll be born this month. Pei Chuan asked, how are you so sure it's a boy? What if it's a girl? Bei Yao thought to herself. Of course she knew. She brushed aside a branch above her head. I dreamed about it. It's fine. Even if it's a girl, I'll love her all the same. Do you want the baby to be born? Biao nodded hard, her eyes glowing with warmth and hope. Pei Chuan frowned. Aren't you afraid he'll take away your parents' love? She smiled softly. No, he shares my blood. We're family. Pei Chuan, do you want a younger brother or sister? She asked, her voice carrying a hint of nervous curiosity. Because she remembered, by high school his parents had already divorced. His father remarried and the new wife brought a girl the same age as him. In her past life she and Pei Chuan weren't close, so she never knew how he felt about that sister. Unexpectedly he answered lightly, either is fine. Beiyao felt a quiet worry rising in her chest, thinking of how much he must have suffered later. When Pei Chuan returned home he unfolded a small paper note. Beiyao must think her negotiation worked, that Shang Mengxian stopped bothering him because of her. But in truth he took that little note and went to find Ding Wenxiang. He wanted Beiyao to always believe it was her doing, so she would never know he had used something underhanded. And all of this he owed to Shang Mengxian's ill intentions. Because of her he realized something painfully clear. He was someone who would never deserve love,